Tobias. I'm a therapist at Evoke therapy programs in St. George, Utah. Um, Started in wilderness therapy in 1998 with you, um, and have been involved in some capacity since then. As a field staff on and off for 10 years, did that for um, a long time, and then worked with you doing transitional care coaching, and then went to grad school and have been with Evoke for about 3 years now as a therapist.
So you got a lot of experience from the field to the clinical side,
Mm-hmm.
and also seeing kids after they leave programs and go home. So when we were working together at Aspen, things were um, things were a bit different then as far as the Aspen model from where you're at with the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So what sort of things would you see a field instructor at Evoke focusing on to be a good instructor?
Um, Definitely. I mean, we place a premium on communication. I think similar to what we did at Aspen, but even more so.
The Evoke
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah, I've been impressed by the overall quality of the staff at Evoke. I was telling you that when after a couple weeks in the field, I was talking to Matt, one of the owners at Evoke and one of my bosses, and he asked me about my experience so far, and the first thing that I talked about was the quality of the field staff and how they seem to be dedicated and bright and smart and energetic and invested. So whatever it is they have going on culturally, I felt like they were onto something. And in the following 3 years, the ensuing 3 years since I've been there, they've done nothing to kind of dispel that. So yeah, I continue to be impressed by them. Um, the culture that's maintained, and the you know, very few times have I had the experience of, oh, you're just kind of you're mailing it in this week. You're
Mm-hmm.
collecting a check. So they're onto something that's pretty special right now.
Yeah. So what is it that you're seeing? What are some of those
I'm
positive
seeing,
qualities?
well, I mean, just the ones that I talked about: engagement, um, energy, investment, um, care. People who want to do good work and want to do a good job, want to make a positive change in clients' lives. Um, yeah, bright, energetic, smart, invested, engaged. They seem to be. This is the other thing that Phil was talking about. We were talking yesterday, and seem to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Generally speaking, staff seem to be really happy to be going to work every week.
Yeah. So what's the student experience like at Evoke? What do you How
I
would
think
you
it's
describe it?
a solid wilderness experience. Um, I mean, I always I when I talk to parents about why I think wilderness is effective, I break it down this way. I say um, I think 50% of it of your kid's experience is simply because they're having a powerful wilderness experience, and then I say another maybe 35% is based on the relationships they're building with each other and with staff, especially, and then maybe another 10 to 15% what comes out of my mouth. Um, so I think we provide a solid, challenging wilderness experience, which goes a long way. Um, and then on top of that, I think we're pretty clinically sophisticated as a program and clinically oriented, and at the same time honoring the wilderness. I don't think we're um, overly clinical, or that I don't we try not to step on or overly stifle the wilderness experience. So I think we strike a good balance between clinical sophistication and providing a really powerful raw wilderness experience.
So what is being clinically oriented? What does that look like?
I think it means a real care for and interest in what's happening with each client in the field clinically and therapeutically. Um, each of us has strengths that are, I think, built on as therapists. I think it used to be in the industry, go out and have a powerful wilderness experience, and that's your therapy. And I think there's a lot to that, but I think it missed the piece of clinically and therapeutically what's going on with this client and how can we best tailor this experience to meet this client's needs psychologically. And I think we do that well. Um,
Can you give some examples of how you might do that?
yeah, I mean, so my theoretical perspective, I use a lot of acceptance and commitment therapy, and I mean, so I'll tailor interventions to increase psychological flexibility, which is the hallmark of psychological health from the ACT perspective and from my perspective. Um, so it may be as simple as asking a client to go grab his bow drill set, and I'll play the role of his mind, and I'll say, okay, now whatever I say until I say stop, just bust a fire, and he'll look at me like I'm off my rocker, and he'll start, and I'll say things like, oh, that's a bad fireboard. I wouldn't even try it. No, that spindle, you call that a spindle? And I'll just lay into him and get into all the kind of play the mindy role,
Mm-hmm.
and the client will typically just he'll look at me funny for a minute as I'm giving him shit, but then typically keep going. And whether or not he busts a bow drill fire, that's kind of irrelevant. But I want him to have the experience that no matter what his mind is telling him, it doesn't have to dictate his behavior. So that's beginning to foster this psychological flexibility. So if he were to listen to his mind in that example, he would stop. He would disengage from the world. He would disengage from life. So that's just a simple kind of intervention that I might use with clients to help a client experience what it's like to gain a different relationship with his or her mind.
It's this question of why does wilderness work?
Yeah, that's a big one and a good one. And I think there are a lot of answers to it, and I can give it a stab, at least from my perspective. I think part of it has to do with we were talking about this earlier when we were walking, this idea of resiliency, um, and building it, and it's this kind of this quality, this characteristic is being studied and has been studied, um, and ways to increase resiliency in our clients. I think wilderness does a good job of it. I think it kind of dictates or forces a client to become more self-reliant, to become more resilient. Um, I mean, how resilient does a client have to be if mom or dad are driving them or they're in mom and dad's car? They drive through McDonald's on their way to see the therapist once a week. Uh, BS their way through session, get back in mom and dad's car, go home. Uh, they just don't have to engage all that much in their livelihood. And I think a lot of that is normal and fine, and it can become problematic when when teenagers are not having to engage very deeply in their lives, or at least in just very narrow ways. So I think wilderness kind of forces that experience and forces that deeper engagement with one's life, which I think builds resilience. Um, it helps them recognize that uh, I can move effectively and powerfully in the world. Um, so I think that's one piece that wilderness is almost inherent in the wilderness experience, in a good wilderness experience. The other piece too that we were talking about is humility and humbleness. And I don't know of any. It'd be interesting to see what kind of literature is out there as far as clinical studies on that idea. But um, just anecdotally, I think it's extremely important to have the experience of I am not the center of the universe, regardless of what you believe in as far as deities and God. Um, I think it's important to have that experience of there's a big old world out here, and I'm not the center of it. Um, and have that and grapple with those questions of where do I fit in, and if I'm not the center of the universe, then what? Yeah, where do I fit in, and where am I? And um, have those experiences um, of awe and grandeur. I think of some of the more powerful experiences in my life, and they were in the wilderness, um, and faced with circumstances where I'm forced to look at myself in deep and pretty profound ways. So I think wilderness can do that too.
Can you think of an example of a time that you were in the wilderness and you were forced to?
Yeah. Uh, there was a time working for Boss, and on the longer courses we would do a sheep or goat kill. So I was an instructor, and we had gotten into camp, and and we were tired. We'd gone through the impact phase, and um, everyone we got to camp, and everyone just went to sleep. And the next day we were going to do a sheep kill, and I was tired too, um, but knew there was a sheep waiting for us up down up the hill. I forget how far it was, but I was tired. I wanted to go to sleep too, and but I knew I had to get the sheep and bring it back down to camp for us the next day. So I hiked up the hill, uh, tired, but it was beautiful. I remember it vividly. Beautiful full moon and the Navajo sandstone domes. And I was tired, and I get up to the sheep that had been left for us, and I tie its legs, put a hood over it, and put it over my back. And it's so I've got this animal who, whose life we're going to take the next day, and I'm walking back down the trail, and I'm tired. I just want to go to sleep. I just want to kind of take care of myself, and I was feeling this connection to the group and a certain duty, um, and then at the same time feeling this incredible connection to the earth and to this animal on my back, and it was one of the more powerful moments of my life, like hiking down the trail, knowing that I'm going to take this animal's life and also providing life and sustenance to a group of clients that were entrusting their lives to us. Um, so that's a moment that will stick with me forever. Um, recognizing that I'm just a small kind of point of life in this larger web. Without speaking too philosophically or metaphysically, but it was a cool experience to feel that this, how quickly life can change and how ephemeral it can be. Like thinking of this creature on my back whose throat I'm going to slit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's one of the experiences that I've had that will stay with me forever.
Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe. The Primitivus Project is made possible by the generous sponsorship of Wingate Wilderness Therapy. To learn more, visit wingatewilderness.therapy.com.